to always see a full room, and I'm sure more people will be trickling in. I love what has been happening with the children's movement over the last few years. And to be honest with you, you guys are the secret sauce of the children's movement, because as we meet as a team, we realize that it's the practitioners that you all are what make the children's movement what it is, a true movement, because you guys are the ones that are out there every week serving the kids, making decisions in your institutions. So we want to just thank you. Can we give each other a round of applause? Yeah. There are, a lot of us go out to different cities, and this is unique. This doesn't happen in cities. So yes, I'm really proud of Fresno. There's so many other areas of focus that have similar movements like this. I'm really proud of where Fresno's at. And today we get to look at some macro systems that affect our kids and our families, so I'm excited about that. If how many folks are new? This is your first time? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, okay, good. We're always excited when we have new folks. We're building to our army of servants in the community, so thank you guys for being here. If you've not been in this building before, the restrooms, or you have to go back around the hallway and make a right, so just in case you need those facilities. We do have some snacks here, so help yourself anytime during the gathering. Please silence your cell phones, so it would be helpful. What's that? April's next. Okay, so just thank you guys so much for being here. And April Hugasian, who just had her baby within the last year, yay! So now she's living out what she's been talking about for years. So, April?
Thanks, Artie. You're awesome. Round of applause for Artie. Thank you, everyone. My name is April Hugasian. I'm with the Youth Leadership Institute, and today I'm going to be leading us in some community building, right? So we understand that community building is really strategic when we're looking at building effective and productive partnerships cross sectors. So we do that very intentionally in this space today, and I think we're going to have some fun and meet some new people. Before we begin, I'm going to ask folks who are at a table of 3 or less to join another table, okay? So we want 5 or 6 people per table, 5 or 6 people per table. So I know that you're comfortable. I'm sorry for having you maybe leave your food. Take your muffin with you. Take your coffee. We're going to move around this morning. It's a windy day. It's a day for movement. Yes, come join us. We have some room at this table up here in the front if folks are looking for a table to join up here at number 2. Get comfy. Good. And then there's some room up here at table 2. Also some room at table 10. Great. Thank you all for your cooperation. Appreciate that. It's much more fun if there are more folks to learn from at your table. So we're going to go ahead and start off our community building session with a question. Do I need a remote, or can I just manually do this? Oh, thanks, Mary Jane. Teamwork. Okay, so we definitely want you to introduce yourself, and that introduction can include whatever you'd like, who you are in the community, your role, your organization, and let people know, why did you decide to attend today's TCM talk? What are you hoping to learn? Now, we would like for you to pair up with one other person, or you can do it in 3s if that's easier, right? We're not going to micromanage, so if you start doing it as a big table, that's okay too. Do what feels right for your table. So you're going to have about 6 minutes to answer this question and get to know each other. When that 6 minutes up, I'll ring a bell, we'll come back, we'll talk about what we learned, and then we'll move on to another question, okay? Does that sound good? Yeah. Go ahead and get started. Thank you.
All right, so thank you all for participating in that. I hope that you're feeling warmed up and that you got to make some authentic connections with folks that maybe you don't traditionally get to connect with on a regular basis. So we're going to go a little bit deeper now. We maybe discussed what we do, why we're here. Now we're going to talk about who we are a little bit more. So we're going to pair up with one other person or with two other people. So in pairs or in triads, okay? And describe a time in your life when you got a second chance. Whatever you feel comfortable sharing. This can be in any area of your life, at any time or point in your life. And what opportunities did that second chance provide you with? How did it change your life? How did it make you better? How did it change the direction of your life? Right? So you might want to take a second to kind of think about that and marinate on that. And when you do, when you're ready, go ahead and pair up with one other person or with two other people, depending on the makeup of your table, and discuss this, okay? You'll have about another 6 minutes. Same thing, when we're ready to move on, I'll go ahead and ring the bell, okay? Thank you all. Thank you for participating in that. We hope that some of these conversations catalyze some deeper, productive cross-collaboration, some relationships, right? We definitely want to make time to do that. So now we want to hear some of the things that you discussed. So we'd like a couple of folks to share, why are you here today? What brought you here today? And maybe what are you hoping to learn, questions you may have. We wanted to hear from a couple of folks. If you'd like to share something that you heard from someone else, you can do that as well. Just make sure it's okay with that other person before you share, okay? So let's hear from you. Why are you here? What are you hoping to gain today? Great.
My name is Joyce Eden, and I'm with the Nursing Leadership Coalition here in the Central San Joaquin Valley. The proverb of a strand of three is much stronger than being alone. So we know that we have to collaborate to be able to achieve the health advocacy we need. And about 5 years ago, strategically, we as a nursing coalition, so we represent academia, service, long-term care, public school nurses. We have nurses from all different venues here in the Valley. But we recognized that we had to start approaching our world differently around health advocacy. So we chose to start being more involved in community boards and in community movements like this. And so we were invited to participate in the children's movement, and we've just been thrilled to be able to do that and participate.
Thank you, Joyce. Others like to share why you're here today and what you're hoping to gain. Mary Jane's coming around with a mic.
She's speaking to the mic.
Okay. I came here today just to network, and so I have met some fabulous people, and he was talking earlier about just meeting people that we are all in the same trenches type of thing, and we're all trying to learn and help children in our community. So that's one thing.
That's beautiful. And what was your name?
Lucy.
Lucy. Thank you, Lucy. Is there anyone else who'd like to share? Great.
Okay, what brought me here is my car. Why I came is you have this great breakfast snack. The fact that every time I come to a TCM meeting, I meet great people, awesome people doing great things in the community, it gives me hope. Because before TCM, I did not have a lot of hope that Fresno and the greater community would actually do something to improve the lives of our young children so they can be productive adults. And TCM does that, and it's really great.
Fantastic. And what's your name?
Howard Watkins.
Thanks, Howard. Good. Is there anyone else that feels compelled to share? We do also would like to hear some stories, examples of a time in your life when you got a second chance and what opportunities that second chance afforded you. Is there anyone who would like to share, or would you like to share on behalf of someone else a story maybe you felt inspired by? Just make sure it's okay with them before you share. Anyone like to share?
Don't be bashful.
Awesome.
Hello, my name is Carlos De Chico. Good morning. For myself, I was explaining to her that my second chance came when I was about 21 years old and my oldest daughter was born. I was looking at going instead of Penn State to the state penitentiary, and I was given an opportunity in my first job at a nonprofit, which reconnected me to doing something good with younger folks, and it's led me here. I still work with youth, and I love it every day when I know a young man follows me and does something good instead of getting caught up in the system.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's amazing. Thank you. Others like to share? Help build some community. Awkward silences just mean that we're thinking about things. That's okay. Can we get one more? A second chance. Yeah. Thank you.
I guess I'll share mine. I'm Rocky. I'm with the library. I told my table here, I've received so many second chances. I think I'm on like my 300th chance. But the most recent one that at least my family has had the privilege of receiving was my son, when he graduated in 2014, he went to Missouri to play football out there. And after about a year and a half out there, it just wasn't for him. And I can remember a conversation that I had with him, and he called and he was just crying. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. As a parent, when you get that phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning from your children, you pick that phone up, So he was just crying, and he was just like, Dad, I don't want you and Mom to be disappointed in me, but I can't stay out here anymore. It's just too far from home. I just really miss, family. I miss my friend. And so I told him, I said, you haven't done anything to disappoint me, so if it isn't for you, then come home and we'll restart, we'll restart. And he did come home, and he spent a year and a half at City, and now he's gonna be going to Irvine in the fall. So we're hoping for better things.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that, Rocky. We appreciate that. Is there anyone else that feels compelled to share before we move on? This is great. We are going to be hearing from a speaker that is going to be discussing some topics, and we wanted to make sure that we were in a place where we had open hearts and open minds, and that we're kind of connected to our own experiences as we hear some of the things that we're going to hear today. So thank you so much for your courage. Thank you for your openness and connecting with other people. We really appreciate your time and your energy here in this space. I am going to pass it over to Mary Jane, and she's going to take us to our next agenda piece. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yes, please give April a round of applause. We're just so happy to have you back with us, April. I know you've spent some time with your family, but your networking facilitation skills far exceed mine, so I'm very, very happy that you're back. So thanks. So next up, we're kind of changing the agenda up a little bit. So before we jump into our talk, we have one of our sort of action team working groups that's been working for the last year and a half, 2+ years, around sort of vision screening. And so I want to invite Courtney Shapiro from Calviva. She's kind of been leading up this, and she's got some updates for you all to share. So we want to kind of kick it off with a little bit of excitement here.
Thank you, Mary Jane. My name is Courtney Shapiro, and I am with Calviva Health, and I am the Director of Public Relations there. Although when you see the video, I say that I'm the Director of Community Relations. But when you see the video, I say that I'm the Director of Public Relations, one and the same. Couldn't figure out my title at the time. I'm going to quickly give you an update of where we're at and what we've accomplished in the last 6 months, and I'm really, really excited to share with you all. So, as you can see, if you can go back to the last slide, in the last few months, we have been working on branding, because we've always been known as the Vision Collaborative. But when we've gone out to funders or talked to the community, well, what is the Vision Collaborative? Who is that? So we have a new name. We are C to Succeed. We are a school-based vision project for children. Can you all see? Am I in the way? Okay. So this is our new logo. We've been working with our marketing team that Calviva has. And so we will be branding all of our marketing brochures, we're gonna have a website, and so that way everyone will go to c2succeed.org. The next slide is our sponsors from 2016-17, and without their help, we would not have been able to accomplish what we've been able to accomplish. So now I'm going to play this video, and I want to first thank Cradle to Career because they produced this for us at no charge. And this has been a great tool for us to go out to the community and funders and new districts that are interested in joining us. And so thank you, Carol, for putting this wonderful video together. So.
Hi, my name is Courtney Shapiro, and I'm the Director of Public Relations for Calviva Health. In 2014, the Children's Movement of Fresno County put together a task force to focus on grade level reading. What we knew is that if a kid couldn't see the board, they wouldn't be able to read at grade level. The task force was made up of Calviva Health, St. Agnes Medical, Kaiser, Suchi Medical, IQ, and our local school districts. We needed a mobile unit that could go out to the schools to bring the services directly to the students. We worked with Suchi, who had a donor from Taiwan that helped support us. The mobile unit arrived in Fresno in November of 2015.
Hi, my name is Stephen Voon, and I'm with the Suchi Medical Foundation. I'm the coordinator for all the mobiles for the foundations. We provide free classes and free eye exam for children who cannot afford. Suchi Foundation is a 50 years organization. We've been doing a lot for helping poor people around the world. And what we do here is we provide care, free, and love, and for people that need, and regardless of religion or any background.
My name is Sandy and I am second grade and my school is West Fresno Elementary School. My name is Dimari and I'm from Peachtree and I go to West Fresno.
Can you see me through there? Hello, my name is Shannon DeHessa. I'm an optometrist here and I work with IQ and partner with the Suchi organization to provide eye exams for children in Fresno County. The mobile unit we have is amazing. The equipment that I have in this mobile unit is probably better than any office I have ever worked in.
Wow, you see everything.
You see everything. So most of the kids that I see do actually need glasses, and the thing is the parents don't usually know that their child needs glasses, and the child doesn't either because they've never known any different. We get to see, on average, 20 to 30 kids in one day with full eye exams and glasses. So it's really made a positive impact for these kids and families. This has been so rewarding. I love to give back to the community. I love to work with kids, and we get to travel around the area. It's been great for me. This is really my dream come true for a job. I'm really loving it.
My name is Hank Gutierrez, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent here at Washington Unified School District. You want to leave no stone unturned. And one of the goals of Cradle to Career and the Children's Movement is to get kids reading on grade level by 3rd grade. So we're really appreciative of this partnership. We cannot thank Dr. Steve and his staff enough for providing this opportunity for our kids. And we know that with greater vision care, we're gonna be able to break down those barriers.
If you want to support kids to make sure they have the best chance possible, then this is a great opportunity to get involved. The kids literally have their lives changed in a matter of an hour because they can see.
It's so
In 2017, we're on track to provide nearly 2,000 kids with glasses.
I'm going to take these off. Can you see? That's pretty good, huh?
That's 2,000 kids that have an opportunity to now read at grade level.
So quickly, I'm going to go over some stats of what we've accomplished since October of 2016 to April 2017. We've hired one optometrist that joins the mobile unit 2 days a week, every Wednesday and Thursday. This is Dr. Shannon DeHessa. We've partnered with 9 school districts in Fresno County. And here's the list of the districts. We serve 20 different elementary schools in the county while being on the road for 33 days. We've had a staggering 6,365 children that were pre-screened in partnership with our school districts and Suchi Medical. When I put that number together yesterday, after getting the data from the districts, I got emotional. I mean, if you can imagine 6,300 kids that were pre-screened for vision services, that's not a small task, and we couldn't have done that without our districts. 726 children received an appointment with our optometrist, and from there, 554 pairs of glasses have been made in the last 6 months. That makes 76% of all appointments receiving glasses. And what we've learned is from our data is that pretty much 1 out of 4 or 1 out of 5 children that are pre-screened need a follow-up vision exam. It is this partnership that has brought these services to our families absolutely free of charge. Keep clicking. So I'd like to introduce you to Tina. You can go back to that picture of the little girl. Tina is a smart and capable young lady from West Fresno Elementary School. Tina suffered from frequent headaches, not because she was ill, but because she was unable to see the board. Not only did her poor vision affect her medically, but also academically. Her teacher reports that prior to her visit with See to Succeed, she was behind in reading by 2 grade levels and struggled to keep up with her peers. Although she was behind, she was very motivated and eager to learn new things every day. In March, the school nurse contacted Tina's mom to ask if she wore glasses. Mom confirmed that Tina did need glasses, but as a full-time working parent, she had struggled to find an optometrist that could fit her into their schedule, also with the requirements of their medical coverage. Mom was informed that there was going to be a free mobile vision program coming to the school, and she immediately expressed willingness to take advantage of the service. 1 week later, Tina was finally prescribed a brand new pair of glasses. Her mother was very grateful for the service and was very impressed with how simple the process was. After Tina received her new glasses, her grades improved dramatically. Mrs. Castle, Tina's teacher, stated, "I'm grateful that she's finally able to have access to glasses because she's been able to quickly improve her reading level by 2 years and is on track to catch up with her peers." We are so happy that See to Succeed was able to come to West Fresno Elementary. Tina has a wonderful mom who is supportive and caring. She just needed the extra support that the program was able to provide. Tina is now able to see the board and ready to achieve success. When a student receives a new pair of glasses, it is like someone unlocking the door to a whole new world for them. They are now able to clearly grasp and focus on what's ahead, and that allows our students to say, "I'm ready." That is Tina's story. Pretty incredible, right? So the last picture. Lastly, I just wanted to kind of demonstrate from this visual. As you can see, this is the highest prescription that we have. The lens is so thick. And if you think about a kid not having this before and what they could actually see and how much their world can change by having these glasses. So it just puts it in perspective of why we're doing this and the huge impact that this program is having. And so we're excited about the opportunities that lay ahead. We're having a luncheon on Tuesday and it's a funders luncheon, and we've invited some key folks in the community to come and support us so we can be sustainable moving forward. So we're really optimistic for what's ahead, and we plan to expand our partnership as long as funds allow us to, but we're really motivated to continue to serve our kids year after year. So that is it. Any questions? Howard.
How much does the program project cost, and is it all done by voluntary donations versus the schools putting up money, not just staff time?
So the schools haven't, they haven't put any financial money in, but they do put time, which is a huge undertaking in itself. But it is all donations. We're completely on sponsorships, and so our great partners, my time is all in kind, thanks to Calviva Health. But it takes $200,000 to have the mobile unit on the road 2 days a week. $300,000 for 3 days a week. And so right now we have funding for 2 days a week. We're hoping to move to 3 days because our optometrist has told us that she's willing to add another day. So we're excited about that.
That's a year. Do you guys take glasses like recycle? Like if you get a new pair, do you take donations for glasses like that?
We don't. We actually provide the children with a brand new pair of glasses. And what we've learned over I gave you stats for 6 months. We've been doing this for a year and a half. But we've learned what kids like and what they don't like. And so we've got rid of a lot of the wire frames and gone with the, thicker frames, the cooler. We try not to get them too oversized because all the kids want to grab the big kids' glasses. But there is a group in town. It is, what group? Not the Key Club, the Lions. They take used glasses.
Yeah, my doctor does, but I don't know. You guys
It's hard
take
because
it,
we're
you guys-
working with smaller frames to fit the children's faces. Artie?
So the process that the nurses at the schools, they do the pre-screening, and those are the ones that are assigned to go to the van when it shows up?
Yeah, so what the law for the schools is that they need to do the kindergartners and the second graders and the fifth graders. And so our project is asking them to go above and beyond because we want to screen preschool to third grade because we want them ready to learn, at grade level, and we also want them ready to go by the time they hit kindergarten. And so we've asked them to step up and screen more kids. So, but we didn't want to just say, hey, you go out and screen them, and if you can't get it done, you're out. So we've provided services through Suu Chi that come out with our mobile auto refractor, and we've been able to do 200 kids in 4 hours. And so they'll come out with volunteers, and they will quickly screen, and it's just like one kid walks in, they look at it from a distance. They don't even need to put their face into a machine. It's an amazing tool that we purchased with our funds. And so we went out to West Fresno and did it out there, and we've done it at a lot of other schools. But some districts have the means to do it on their own as well.
How do you pick the schools in those districts?
I leave it up to the district. So we have some set criteria that we put together about 2 years ago with Brooks Health, pretty much based on free and reduced lunches. And most of the districts that we're working with, all their schools are free and reduced lunches. Any other questions? Yes?
Is there a plan to revisit the students that get glasses now as their prescriptions change?
Yes. So right now, like as we speak, when we're out on the road, we try to educate the parents that, you need to go to the eye doctor every year. Vision health education is not there. We feel like our parents are getting there with dental, but vision health education is not there. Most of the families said, I didn't know you could go to the eye doctor this early. So what we put together so far is we have a brochure in English and Spanish that talks about the importance of vision health. What we're trying to do is based on the school moving forward, we're going to try to connect them to a local optometrist. But it's really hard. Like even in our Medi-Cal community, there's not a lot of optometrists, especially in the rural areas. If you're in Firebot, you don't have an optometrist. You have to go to Mendota to see the optometrist. So we're trying to work with partners like United Health Centers, out in Mendota to partner with Fireball. The other thing is I've talked to Fresno County Office of Ed, and their Migrant Ed program is willing to potentially work with us, that any kid in the rural community could be then followed up by the Migrant Ed program a year later and help them plan their next appointment and provide them transportation. So we're really excited about that opportunity. Any other questions? Oh, yes.
So is there a schedule that we can find out where they're located at? Like for Fresno Unified?
In like to come and just see the mobile unit or to open it up to other people? So we don't have people come in off the street because it's specifically for that school. But what I've done is I've had people call me and say, hey, I've got this kid, you're not coming to my school, we'll figure it out. If we have someone that has that severe of a need and does not have access, we will help connect you. Especially if they're in one of the districts. Sometimes the kid will come from one school and come to another school in their district. So.
The funders, have you reached out to the various Rotary clubs? Because virtually all of them do something international. This is in their backyard.
Yeah, we have 2 members of Rotary coming to our luncheon on Tuesday. So if you know anyone that is looking for a program to support, please send them my way. What we're trying to do is get some longer commitments so that I'm not asking for money every year. So, but yeah, we're excited about what lies ahead. Thank you.
I just want to say real quick, Courtney, you have been amazing. What a rock star. Oh my God. So as I get comfortable in my participation role with all of you, I felt like I just wanted to get up here and acknowledge the kind of leadership that you've put against this work. For those of you that are new to this was an idea, okay? A superintendent said, you guys want to do something about making sure kids are ready for school, they need to see the board. And this committee, this TCM work group, started with nothing but the talent around the table. And the resources that have been deployed against this have been resources that they figured out existed in our county, but just weren't aligned right. And Taiwan sent a $500,000 check for that mobile unit because they got work product pulled together. I mean, it's really, really significant. And so thank you so much. And thank you for the example that you are to this group and this movement of what we can do when we pull it together. I mean, this is an amazing group, and you guys are driving change in ways you just don't even realize. So I'm just so grateful.
And then on behalf of Washington Unified School District, I want to publicly thank Courtney and all of the team. It's been unbelievable.
When is your luncheon and where? You said
Say it again?
your luncheon on Tuesday. Where is
Oh, it's at Calviva's office, and if you have someone that would like to come, we have very limited seats, but you know.
it? Contact you.
Yeah, contact me for
Okay.
sure.
All right.
Great. Yes, thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Calviva. We really appreciate it. Courtney's been a part of the children's movement since the very, very beginning. So it's exciting to see all of us continue to be able to lean on each other and help make great things happen for our children and young people here in Fresno County. So I'm very excited. I'm Mary Jane, so I haven't been up here and introduced myself, but I'm the entrepreneur in residence with the children's movement. And I am just very excited to introduce our speaker for today and have her share her experience and her knowledge here with you all today. Tia and I worked together a few years ago on some statewide policy work when I was working with the Youth Leadership Institute and young people around sort of social emotional supports and school discipline and sort of all the different things that were happening there. So I'm excited to be able to have her come here from the Bay Area, and I'm going to read her bio here for her so that you guys can get a little bit more background on Tia. So Tia Elena Martinez has over 25 years experience working for social justice in low-income communities and communities of color in the United States. Over the decades, her work has spanned a wide range of issues, including K-12 education, HIV/AIDS epidemic, the war on drugs, homelessness, affordable housing, disconnected youth, and immigration. She's currently an independent consultant doing work on dismantling the school-to-prison pipeline and transforming life chances for our boys and men of color. Prior to consulting, she was a chief equity officer at the Stupski Foundation, where she designed an R&D effort focused on applying knowledge from the psychology and neuroscience fields to help low-income students and students of color own and drive their own learning. Tia came to the foundation from the Warren Institute on Race, Ethnicity, and Diversity at UC Berkeley Law School, where she was acting director of education, leading a policy unit focused on issues related to education reform, teacher effectiveness, and racial justice. Prior to joining the Warren Institute, she served as a strategic consultant for the Office of Civil Rights in the U.S. Department of Education, leading their strategic planning process and supporting rollout and implementation of the new strategy across 12 regional offices. Prior to working with the department, Tia was a senior manager with the Bridgespan Group, where she led engagements with national foundations and major civil rights groups. She's also been a senior fellow at the Hewlett Foundation, a policy analyst for the Corporation for Supportive Housing, and the San Francisco Mayor's HIV Health Services Planning Council and history outreach worker. Tia has an A.B. in history from Harvard University, a master's in public policy from the University of California, Berkeley, Goldman School of Public Policy, and a J.D. from Stanford Law School. So please join me in welcoming Tia Martinez.
Hi, thank you guys so much. I'm really excited to be here. What I'm going to talk about, so how many people would say that you feel you're pretty familiar at least with the school to prison pipeline, with what it is? Okay, cool, great. So what I'm going to do is for those folks, how many people is this new for? Is it new for anyone here? Okay, there's folks it's new for. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an overall introduction, and then we're going to do a real kind of deep dive. And what we're going to do is we're going to follow a kid through the pipeline to adulthood, and then what happens to their child, okay? Then we're going to take it and we're going to say, what can we do? What are the programmatic and policy things we can do to change this flow? So that's sort of what I'm going to be talking about today. Now, you can't see this, it'll get bigger, don't worry. It's a Prezi. This is the school to prison immigrant detention pipeline. Now, oops, no, hold on. Okay. Yeah, thank you. All right. So what is it? What I'm putting up here, you can't see, but these are the ages of the kid. Okay. This over here, it's conception 0 to 4, 5 to 11, 12 to 17, 18 to 24, and 25 and up. Okay. So that's the life course, right? And that's not where I want to be. Sorry. Technical difficulties. Here we go. I got it. Now I'm good. So what is the school to prison pipeline? The school to prison pipeline is a handoff between different institutions in society, okay? Where children are handed off from one institution to the next. Now this is the flow. You start with family. Kids born into family. Family is an essential building block institution of society. Children hand off to childcare, right? And pre-K. Pre-K hands off to elementary school, elementary to secondary school. Now what's happening is elementary school and secondary school are increasingly handing off to the police, okay? The police are handing off to juvenile justice. Juvenile justice, once you're in that system, it makes it really likely that once you hit 18, you're gonna end up in the jail system, the county jail system. You spend time there, that further increases the likelihood that you end up in the state prison system. And then the next kind of institution is the experience of having a felony record in the United States. That's an institution. We'll talk about what that involves, okay? And then finally, the last institution is transgenerational, going from one generation to another. So let's begin at the beginning. A child's born, right? Okay. In this case, I'm going to be talking about initially two black and brown little boys, okay? So a little baby boy is born, okay? This family and child is situated in a neighborhood in a community, okay? Now, what we know is over the last 40 years, there's been an explosion in what? In a certain type of neighborhood and community in which kids are placed in. And that type is called a neighborhood of concentrated disadvantage. How many folks are familiar with the term neighborhoods of concentrated poverty? Okay, great. So what it is it's hard to be poor. We all understand that it's hard to be a kid and grow up poor. Hard to be a parent and have kids and grow up poor. It's doubly hard, though, when you live in a neighborhood where most of the other people in your neighborhood are also poor. So there's a detriment both to your family being poor, and there's another detriment to everyone else around you, or lots of people around you being poor. Okay? That's called concentrated poverty. And before 1970, it was rare to have neighborhoods where 40% or more of the families were in poverty. Okay? Today, it's absolutely widespread. Okay? So what happens is when you take a lot of suffering and you push it all in the same place, you know? So now all the people hurting are living in the same place. What happens? What happens when you take a lot of people who are feeling kind of desperate, freaked out? What? More hurt and pain. When you put all that suffering together, you shake it up, you get more suffering. And the research shows unequivocally that when you bring all that stuff together, one thing you get is violence. Okay? Violence in families and violence in the street. We know that. Okay? Now, do you know that Fresno has the second highest concentration of poverty in the nation? Only McAllen, Texas, that metro area on the border, has a higher. We're 3 or 4 spots above Detroit. Okay? Also, Fresno is #1 in California for the percent of poor children who are living in these kind of neighborhoods, right? So what that means is, you guys, this is a movement here, you know? And when I get a chance to hear, I get a chance to spend time in here or Bakersfield. Like this is ground zero. This is where it's happening. All those people talking blah, blah, blah in the Bay Area and LA, this is it, right? This is incredibly powerful, important work you're doing. So let's go back to the story. So what's it like to be a kid growing up in those neighborhoods? Especially a little baby. So these kind of neighborhoods create something that's known in the literature as toxic stress. How many people are familiar with toxic stress? Okay, all right, yeah, you guys got this one. Good, I'm not gonna go too deep in it. Well, basically what that means is the violence, the chaos, the discrimination, the stress creates an environment that is literally bad for the brain and body, okay? It puts us in a constant state of fight or flight, which means our bodies are bathed in stress hormones. And now, fight or flight's a great system if, you know, a tiger's gonna come and attack you, right? You get in that state, what it's doing is mobilizing your system to run. Mobilizing your system to get the hell out of there, right? And that's really great because then you have it, you're flooded with this stuff, you run and in 3 seconds, either you're dead or you got away, right? But what's happening to these babies is that the tiger is always chasing them. It never goes away. And our bodies actually didn't evolve to have all of those stress hormones. They didn't evolve. So what happens to that baby's brain? What happens to that baby's brain is it gets stuck in the red. It gets stuck in the red. And when you're stuck in the red, you're stuck in the limbic, kind of the middle part of your brain. Okay? And what you aren't doing is developing the part of your brain called the prefrontal cortex. That part's shut down. What does the prefrontal cortex do? Yes, right? It does executive function, it does higher thinking, it does the cost and benefit analysis. So you're in the red. If the tiger is chasing you, do you need to do a cost benefit analysis? Hell no. You don't need that big, expensive, slow system up there. So you shut it down, which is great, like I say, for those 3 seconds. But if you're a baby especially, because how many neurons are happening between 0 and 2? You guys probably will know this better. What is it? It's like 700 per minute or second or something. It's the brain development is just huge and incredibly dependent on environment. We don't come out fully baked, right? We need, in particular, all that back and forth with mom. But what if mom is overloaded? Okay? So these 2 little boys are born. And the fact of the matter that's amazing is that most poor kids in these communities, I grew up in one, a lot of us grew up in one, we're okay. And knowing what we all know, why are we okay? How come we're still all right? And it seems that we all should be completely stuck, in fight, flight, and how do we survive? How do we survive what accounts for that resiliency? Thank you. So we have something as close as we know as an antidote to toxic stress. It is the thing that will turn that around. And that thing is love. Okay? In particular, the attachment between a primary caretaker and that baby. What that love does is it wraps that child in this cocoon and protects it from that toxic stress. Toxic stress, in fact, is defined in the definition of toxic stress. We define it by the absence of supportive relationships, right? So that buffering is so essential that it's no longer toxic stress when the mom does that. And so one thing we need to do is really give thanks and love to all of the moms and the dads and the families and the grandmas who are protecting most of the kids. But when you've lived in these neighborhoods your whole life, and your mom lived in that neighborhood her whole life, and your grandma, and your great-grandma, and it's been generations of dealing with these stress, something happens. Because while the mom can protect the baby, no one's protecting the mom from that toxic stress. And eventually what happens is some moms or some primary caretakers, they break. Okay? They break under that. Okay? What does breaking look like? When you guys are working with a family and you know the family broke under that.
Drugs and alcohol.
Drugs, alcohol, I'm sorry, because I'm walking in front of this over and over again. Drugs, alcohol, violence, violent relationships, crime, right? And when that mom breaks, that little baby boy has nobody to protect. So that's the beginning of our story. We're talking about two baby boys. One's got that protector mom, right? And mind you, the protector mom is able probably to do the protecting because grandma and friends and cousins and everyone is helping her, right? Okay? But then you've got families that are so broken down by this, so many people falling from toxic stress. Like the more that fall, the harder it is, the easier it is for the next, right? That support system is worn thin. So this is the mom that broke, okay? So these boys, oops, about this. Okay, I don't know what I've done here. It speeded forward. So let's say these kids, I got it, I think I got it. If I do this again, don't listen to me, just be like, give that to me. And you just stop it. You can't do it. Okay, these boys turn 5 and they go to school, okay? I gotta walk, I'm sorry. I'm gonna keep on going through this and I'm sorry about that. But these kids show up in school, it's kindergarten, it's the first day. What are 5-year-old little boys like? Are they good at sitting in circle? Oh my God, are they good at coloring in the lines? Are they good at keeping their hands to themselves? I got a 4.5 and an 8-year-old at home. They're crazy. They're just crazy. And they come in at 5 years old, they've just begun to develop that prefrontal cortex, the ability to self-regulate. It's this, you should see the steep line from about 4 to 8. Like, it's just, there's so much being gained at that time. And of course, some kids are ahead of others. And boys are usually behind girls, on average, right? What that means is you're just gonna see a lot of behavior that is gonna be understood as not school ready. Okay? Now, which in a certain way is fine. The whole thing, everything that's happening between kindergarten and 2nd grade through those first 3 years are all about those little boys learning to be students, right? And how do you learn when you're little? And you guys know this. How do you learn to keep your hands to yourself or to pay attention or to stay on task when you're going all over? What works? With little kids, what works? Redirecting them over and over and over. It's an apprenticeship. No, we don't do that over. Come over here. No, right here. Now try this, right? And about the 5,972nd time, suddenly it takes. Everyone who has kids knows that. And you're like, what the? That's been insane. And then suddenly it happens. And that happens over and over again. So that by 3rd grade, they got it. Those muscles are strong. Okay? Now what I'm going to say is that if that boy is black or brown, it's going to be different for that child. Let's start with the protector mom boy. This boy is a regular 5-year-old, okay? There's nothing different about this boy and any other 5-year-old. But how the teacher is going to perceive and interpret the normal 5-year-old behavior is going to be radically different than if that boy were white, okay? So what do we know? A study out of Stanford. Amazing study. What it did is it recruited teachers off district websites. So it got all the teachers. Then it gave them, said, listen, you're teaching a class, and it gave you a picture of the school, and actually had a real California school discipline record from an elementary school, right? I said, so you got this kid, and he does some minor act of misbehavior. The kind of thing that distracts you from teaching. That is a real pain, right? This is not nothing. This is like you gotta, the wandering around the room, throwing Kleenex or paper at a friend, talking, you know, not taking off their hat, that kind of stuff. The stuff that really, you know, can we all settle down, right? So that happens. This happens, and then they say, okay, so I want you to tell me on a scale of 1 to 5, of course, how irritated were you by that? Okay. How severe, how bad do you think that was? How much did that interfere with your ability to keep order in class, right? And then how severe a discipline response should they get to this? Now, you go through that, and then they say, 2 weeks later, guess what happens? He does it again. He does it again. So you go through all the same questions. Okay? Now, of course, there's a trick to this. The trick is when you came in, you got put in 1 of 2 groups. Okay? One group, everything's the same except the name of the child. One group, the boy's name is Darnell. The other group, the boy's name is Greg. The only difference. So what do the findings say? Well, after the first offense, that first time, there's absolutely no difference. Doesn't matter if it's Darnell or Greg. The teachers are equally irritated, say it equally interferes with their teaching, and want an equally severe discipline. But after the second one, you see what's called for black students an escalation effect. All right? So what happens is the white kid, the Greg, with the name that didn't have a racial connotation, right, to it, stayed exactly the same. The teacher didn't get any more irritated, didn't think you needed any more punishment. But for Darnell, everything shot up, okay? More irritated, said it distracted more, considered the evidence, the offense more severe, and recommended more severe punishment. They also were more likely to identify these kids as troublemakers and to be able to imagine doing this again. Like, do you think you're going to have to? Can you see yourself giving it? Absolutely. Remember, every single thing was exactly the same. Okay? So we know that that boy from the protector mom is going to come up against us. What about the boy from the mom who's broken? How do you think he's acting? What's he acting like? What is that 5-year-old like in kindergarten?
He's running around.
Running around?
Poking kids.
Fighting? Yeah. Other things? Defiant? Acting out? Scared? Hypervigilant? One little touch and suddenly he's attacking someone. Like, why are you doing that? Right? This kid was a lot of work for that teacher. A lot of work for that teacher. Right? Both of these boys, I'm telling you, are going to end up in the principal's office. Okay? What does that teacher get when they make an office referral? What does, I'll use she since most teachers are women. What does she get when she refers that kid to the principal?
Gets the kid out of the class.
Exactly! She gets the kid gone, right? Immediate. And then the principal or the vice principal makes a decision. you're gonna take it over from me, really, I'm no good at it. Okay, wait, hold on, no, give me one more chance. So there's gonna be conflict, the teacher's gonna make an office referral, and you're gonna see an out-of-school suspension, okay? What I wanna tell you about out-of-school suspensions, we haven't always done this. In the 70s, we didn't suspend anywhere near the amount we suspend now, at all, right? Okay. In fact, suspension rates overall for white students have a little under doubled. Now, for Latino students, they've more than doubled. For black students, they've almost tripled, okay? So what that means is everyone's more likely now to get suspended. And the gap between black and Latino and white kids is even greater than it was in 1970, okay? So we know that, and what's happening there? Why are all these suspensions happening? One thing that we talk about, and when I have longer, I show you guys the trends on this, and I say, what could explain this? One thing that could explain it is increasing youth violence. Kids being crazier, right? That would mean more misbehavior, right? Does anyone know when the height of youth violence was? When did we have the highest rates of youth violence? In the 90s. You're the one, I have to say, there's a first room that, like, you guys got it. 94 is the height. Now what you see, I haven't put it up here, but so you got right here, what you see is it goes up to 94, and then what happens after 94? Youth crime starts falling and falling and falling, and youth violent crime is today at its lowest level since they began collecting the numbers. Okay? It is incredibly low. But what happened to suspension rates? They kept climbing and climbing and climbing. Why? Police officers on campus, other thoughts? Zero tolerance, right? No tolerance, zero tolerance. So one thing that happened is the things you got suspended for, the category of what you grew, right? So what happened is the old stuff that used to mean, all right, after class, you come over here, we're gonna talk, and I'm gonna call your mother, and we need to talk, right? That thing now automatically gets you sent to the office, right? And the thing that used to just mean you got to go sit down with the vice principal or the dean and have a good talking to, now that gets you suspended, right? The thing that surely used to get you suspended, like a scuffle in the halls, what does that get you? It gets you expelled, or it gets you arrested, right? So there's been this kind of upgrading in terms of the punishment for stuff. Oh man, this is so not, okay, I'm sorry, you get just do it. Just take it over. I'll say click here. Oh man, see? You know, I don't want to give up control. Okay, go to the next one. Go to the next one. Okay, go to the next one. We're going to now talk about what happens when you get suspended. Oh, this is kind of fun not having to do it. So, what happens when you get suspended? We're going to talk about research now, but we're going to try and talk about it with those two boys in mind, okay? So what happens when you get suspended? What do you get less of? You get less learning time, pure and simple, right? That makes a lot of sense. Then, when you're suspended, in particular when you're repeatedly suspended, you fall behind academically, right? And you become less connected to your teacher and your schoolmates, right? You become more connected to folks out here, less connected there. Now, for a long time, we used to talk about, in particular, the advocates and the civil rights advocates would say, hey, look at this data, the kids who are suspended, they're dropping out more, you know, they're being held back more. And that actually wasn't really very strong evidence. Do people know why? Just saying, if I just take Fresno High School and I just say, let's look at all the kids who are suspended and compare GPAs, you know, or compare dropout rates. Why is that not powerful evidence? Yes, so have folks heard of this idea that correlation is not causation? Right? Okay? So the idea is that the kind of kids who get suspended might be different than the kids who don't get suspended. And that difference might really account for those bad outcomes. For instance, if you can't read and you're in 5th grade, and the teacher says, you know, read this paragraph, you're faced with a choice. I can act a fool and be sent out, or I can struggle with the paragraph and be laughed at. And everyone chooses the first, okay? So we know that. We know that's happening. But what that means, data-wise, is maybe it's not the suspension that's causing the kids to drop out. Maybe it's their reading. Maybe it's the underlying reason. So all of this changed in a big way about 5 years ago because we did a massive study in Texas. Something like 5 million sixth graders. I mean, it's insane. They used administrative data. And they followed these kids from 6th grade to 2 years after high school. And what this allowed them to do is compare what's happening with one kid, basically to take a kid, right? And then they were able to match him with another kid on 80 variables. So the kid had the same behavioral history, the same test scores, the same family, the same race, everything. But the thing is, one kid gets suspended and one kid doesn't, okay? And then they watch what happens, okay? So you've got 2 kids who start out the same. The only difference being the suspension. And this is what they found out. The kid who got suspended is twice as likely to repeat a grade and twice as likely to drop out. Now that's about as powerful right now, barring actually randomizing people to suspension or not suspension, as we're going to get. Now, could you go to the next one? What happens what do you get more of? Could I get some water? What do you get more of when you get suspended? You get less learning. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I got it. What do you get more of?
You get to meet more of your compatriots in the community and form a little gang.
Thank you. Exactly what you're getting. In more unsupervised time, remember the neighborhoods we talked about? In poor, racially segregated neighborhoods. This is going to expose you to 2 things. You're going to be exposed to community violence and street drama, right? What else are you going to be exposed to? You're going to be exposed to aggressive policing. What do I mean by aggressive policing? Policing is another thing that's totally transformed in the last 40 or 45 years, right? In particular, the militarization of police, but also the aggressive enforcement of misdemeanors, something called broken windows. How many people are familiar with the term broken windows policing? The idea there is that you got to sweat the little stuff. If you don't, catch the person who's not paying their bus fare, right? Or drinking from an open container, right? Or walking in the street versus the sidewalk. That you send a message out that disorder's okay. And that message leads to much more serious things, okay? Like murder. This has not been, there is no empirical evidence of this, but it's spread like wildfire. What that means is that that kid is suspended, sitting there on the corner, very likely to experience interaction with a police officer. Okay, over typically pretty small things. Go to the next one. So the interaction with the police officer, or the interaction with other folks on the street and violence, means that eventually that child's going to be arrested. Okay, and in fact, remember the Texas study? The 5 million 5th graders, or whatever it was a huge number? Well, the kid who got suspended, not only was he twice as likely to drop out, he was 3 times as likely to show up in the juvenile justice database. Okay? This wasn't self-report. They were able to just go in there like, whoa, there that kid is. Right? Next. Again, I'll go click. Click, click. Okay, but we also know that you don't even need to go that route of going out to the street, getting involved with gang violence or getting involved with interaction with police and getting arrested, because you can be arrested directly from your school. And increasingly, that's what's happening as we put more and more police in school. Now, the thing with police in school is it's just a terrible developmental fit. Police are going to be police. There's nothing wrong with that. They have a job to do. They're going to be police. Now, the problem is you're going to put them in a building with a lot of teenagers. What developmentally, although do we know, is the task of adolescence? Challenge. It's to separate. You're getting ready to separate. So what does that mean you do? You push back. You are a pain in the butt, right? That's your job. And teachers and administrators and school social workers are much more likely to understand that than police officers. In fact, that behavior, which should be responded to, there should be good boundaries, there have to be consequences, just like when the child was 5, teaching, learning this stuff, right? But when you're sitting there in that schoolroom and you don't give your cell phone to your teacher, that's a problem, right? That needs to be dealt with because the teacher's in charge, the teacher asks you for something. Now the teacher calls a police officer. The police officer, by their very presence as a police officer, changes the definition of that behavior. From not listening to your teacher, to resisting arrest, to not following the orders of a police officer. All of those are arrestable offenses. It changes just for that person being there. It's a terrible developmental fit, okay? Click. If you end up arrested enough, and you end up in front of juvenile court enough, you eventually are you're going to serve a term of detention, okay? And what do we know about detention? What we know, thank you. Amazing study, another amazing study out of Chicago this time. It looked at kids it got like every kid who went into the Chicago court, the Cook County courts, right? Their dockets were assigned randomly, okay? Now what that meant is they were able to compare kids' outcomes by the different judges that they got, because that was the only thing that differed. Now, as you know, the folks here work with juvenile judges. You just have jailer judges and non-jailer judges. That's just how every judge has a different proclivity to put people away. That's just how it is. So what this allowed them to do was compare the kid that got randomized to the jailer judge to the kid that got randomized to the non-jailer judge. And this is what they found. Now this is important, because when we look at these outcomes, what we're looking for is the independent effect of locking a kid up, okay? Remember, those kids come with a world of problems beginning to, right? So you need to have the right comparison, right? You need to compare them to another kid with a world of problems. And in this case, they could, because another kid with the world of problems got randomized to the other judge and didn't get incarcerated. Okay? And this is what they found. That being detained increased the likelihood of dropping out from a 1 in 10 chance to a 1 in 4 chance. Okay? We know, I know folks here know how hard it is once you go into the juvenile justice system and you go into the county district, what it's like, how hard it is to reattach them to a district school. In LA for years, principals would systematically bounce kids out. They would refuse them reentry. No one wanted that troublemaker. So if you have the grit, and that's true grit, to keep on trying, keep on demanding that you get back in school, the chances are overwhelmingly likely first that you'll end up in an alternative school, right? By this time, you're really behind, you have high needs. Suddenly you're in a school in which you have less seat time requirements, where you're given packets, where you're sent home to do work online, right? You're getting less right when you need more. But still, you get in there, right? You finally get re-enrolled. Click. So now you're back in your class, right? And the teacher's like, son, take off that hat. So, what's your mood at this point? What's your feeling about the world? Does the world feel fair? No. Are you going to escalate or de-escalate when the teacher asks you? You're going to escalate, and then what's going to happen? You're going to get suspended. And so this goes round and round and round, and what it makes it overwhelmingly likely, you get caught in that system trap, right? Click. Is that two things happen. It's going to be likely that when you're going round and round in that, one is that you drop out of high school. And we know this is the direct bridge between school and prison, okay? That doubles to quadruples the probability of going to prison. Click. Click. We know, for instance, among black men who didn't finish high school, nationally, almost 70% have been to prison by the time they're 35. Click. In California, that same group, black men with a high school degree, 90% were found in the prison database. 90%. The ticket to jail, right? Click. The other thing it makes really likely, like you might have gone in, arrested, maybe did a little time in juvenile detention, but it's really likely that eventually you're going to end up going to camp. The equivalent of camp or DJJ, right? And what do we know? The same Chicago study, right? What is the independent effect of a child serving a term of detention? I'm not talking about just the time you're held there, right? I'm talking you're serving your term of detention. Basically, the kids who got the judges that were real hardcore, and were incarcerated, their likelihood of going to prison by the time they were 25 increased by 22 percentage points. Not 22%, but 22 percentage points. What that means is it's like going from a 1 in 10 chance that you're going to end up in prison by 25 to a 1 in 3 chance. Okay? That direct link. Click. Click. So, what this means is you quickly are caught up in first JJ, then jail, and you cycle and cycle, and eventually you're going to catch a felony. I'll just tell you something about felonies and about the changes over the last 45 years, right? What we began to, we've lived through this incredible tough on crime era, right? And we're living in one of the birthplaces of 3 strikes, right? Right? So this is one of the things that did is it expanded what was considered a felony, right? In particular, it took a whole bunch of drug offenses that were nonviolent and it brought them in. So more things are now felonies than were in 1970. The other thing it did is it changed the harshness of sentencing, right? So not only are more things felony, but if you get a felony, you're more likely to have to go away for a very long time, right? And that was the introduction of mandatory minimums and enhancements and things like 3 strikes, right? What that led to was, oh, go back, not done. Good, though, you got my rhythm. I appreciate that. So what that meant is from 1970 to now, the number of folks in prison has gone up 430%. If we put 430%, we're not used to, did you have a question?
No, it's not a question, but in addition to what you're saying, that time period is when it began to criminalize those with mental health issues. That's true?
Yes. And that is going to be exactly where I go next.
Oh, sorry.
So that's, no, this is awesome, and please let in, I'm doing way too much blah blah. But if you throw in jail, the increase in jail there, it's 800%. We are the top incarcerator in the whole world.
We're number 1.
We're number 1, right? Okay. So could you go to the next one? The other thing we've begun to do is not just have felony charges that we send back, but also to do a lot around immigrant detention and deportation. Okay. Since 1996, immigrant detention has increased by 500%. What is immigrant detention? What is it? What does it mean if you are detained? What happens to you? What happens before you get deported? You're in prison, right? It's called immigrant detention. So you may, the technicalities, you may have to actually first serve some time, but you eventually go to a place called immigrant detention that's very likely to be run by the Corrections Corporation of America, which is the big firm that does all of our private prisons. There's no difference. This is a clear way where we split the movement and you've got immigrants battling with Chicanos and blacks because it's like, oh no, my issue right here is about detention and my issue is about policing and it's the same thing. It's the same thing with the same effects. And you know what? In this case, we said one of these young boys, one of these young men had a felony. Now what if you get arrested, charged, and convicted, but it's not a felony, it's a misdemeanor? What happens?
You're a hardcore criminal, you get deported.
Exactly, right? And what happens though if you got all your papers in order? What happens if you're actually a legal permanent resident? Everything, you just haven't become a citizen. 1996, federal law, you get booted. It makes no difference, okay? It doesn't matter if you have your papers. Next. So by this time, click. At this point, remember back in the beginning in that classroom with that little boy coming in? When we talked about what was wrong, we would say, hey man, this kid has social emotional issues. They might have some trauma stuff in their family. We need to figure out how to build this muscle, how to strengthen the family unit. Maybe the mom's needs drug treatment. What are we gonna do, right? At that point, it's firmly early intervention. At this point, every single time that child asks for help, in that incredibly annoying way, kids ask for help. How do kids ask for help? They act out, right? Child was punished, and this is really important, pushed away from adults and services. That's the key part, right? Pushed away, right? And by this time, it's metastasized, okay? It's now mental health and substance abuse issues. This is a study that looked at prisons using the strictest diagnostic criteria. 53% of folks Had substance abuse issues, 56. Had a mental health problem. When you combine it, close to 2 out of 3 had one of those. Essentially, our prisons have become our de facto behavioral health care system for poor men. Okay? Click. And you may go in. Oh, click. Click. So you may go in there. You got all this stuff going on. And what I'm going to say is you go in there and your health gets even worse. Right? An amazing study that looked at, from the American Journal of Public Health, looked at the impact of prison on lifespan. And this professor found that for every additional year you spend in prison, it produces a 2-year decline in life expectancy. Click. Does anyone know what this is a picture of?
That's rec time.
Rec time? That? You're right. That's group therapy.
Oh my God.
That's Mule Creek State Prison in California. Notoriously bad healthcare system, being sued. These young men are in group therapy, in individual cages. Think it's gonna work? So finally, you get a clinician. You finally get to be in therapy. And that's how it's happening. Look. So you make it through. Now these young men are out, okay? And in a certain way, having survived all of that, having survived a term in prison, in a certain way their punishment's only just begun. Why? Right? It's because that felon status makes essentially all the outlawed old forms of discrimination, like discrimination in voting, housing, education, benefits, all of those old forms of discrimination that our ancestors fought and died for are now perfectly legal if they're based on felony status. Right? Click. And if you got somebody without a lot of education, with behavioral health issues, and now facing legal discrimination, it shouldn't be surprised that we have a stack of studies this high that increases the probability of low earnings, housing instability, and untreated health problems. And, this is kind of a no-doubt thing, if you're homeless, unemployed, and sick, what does that increase the probability of? Recidivism. Free housing and medical care, actually. Go click. Click again. Right. So this is the second self-destructive system trap, right? You're going to be when you're locked out of all those systems, the only place to go is the very thing that will bring you right back into the most destructive system that locked you out in the first place. Click. Now let's go across at this point, this man has children, okay? He's an adult. Click. Okay, click. So let's say what happens. Let's go forward 20 years. This is a study that looked at 2 decades after release from prison. What did they find? For these folks who had committed a felony, right, been convicted of a felony, and didn't have a high school degree. So exactly like the 2 boys, the 2 men, now we're talking about men, now we're talking about older men, right? What they found was that 3 out of 4 remained in the bottom 20% of income, of the income distribution. In other words, they remained among the poorest of the poor. It was about half that for folks with similar education backgrounds but with no felony, right? What having a felony does is it makes the floor incredibly sticky and it takes kind of rungs out of the ladder of mobility. So as you try to better yourself, you can't get out of the bottom. You know, even when you think you've got one on, you fall back. And if you're stuck there, if you're stuck in deep poverty, who else is stuck there? Click. When you're stuck at the bottom, so are your kids. This is how disadvantage passes the next generation. Click. And what do we know about the children of incarcerated parents? Again, one of those things we know, like, so much research on. What do we know about them, especially boys? They know they're more likely to display externalizing behavior. What is externalizing behavior? Acting out, violence, aggression. Okay, so now this man has a 5-year-old son who's really angry. And what do black and brown angry 5-year-old boys do when they go to kindergarten? What happens to them? Click. What happens? They get suspended from school, right? And it goes around. Click. Around. What else do we know about that little boy? That second generation. You all know about ACEs, right? Remember, having a parent who's incarcerated, having a parent who's mentally ill, having a parent who's with a substance abuse, all of those are ACEs. Out of the gate, you got 3. Out of the gate, you got 3. And we know that they're associated with increased risk of morbidity and mortality. We also know that they are the most powerful predictors of being a victim or perpetrator of violence. And that leads us back into click. Remember that community violence we talked about? Why is there so much violence, right? That community violence, and click again. And again, and again. And finally into violence and all. Okay? So we are out of time, which means, unfortunately, this happens sometimes. I don't get to do the really best part, so maybe I can come back, because the best part is when I take it apart, right? But I want to make sure folks have time to talk. But I want to give you, I'll send everyone the link. There's a webinar of me doing this, right? What I do, all of these things here, those are all of the things we can do today to break this, okay? And I'm going to walk you through all of those, okay? The one thing I do want to leave you with, and you're doing many of these, is this. Because what I just told you was heavy. And what I just told you, I don't have time to tell you how we stop that bleeding. So I really want to leave you with this. With first the assurance that there are so many ways. What you guys are doing right now is beginning to stop that cycle. But also, this is from the Old Testament and the Talmud. Do not be daunted by the world's grief. You're not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon.
Do you have a website?
So thank you so much, Tia. We're gonna shift gears a little bit and offer a chance to do some Q&A with you, because I know a lot of you have some questions, so we are gonna give you guys a chance to do that. But we also wanted to bring Tia in at this time too, because we've had a lot of conversations about a lot of the solutions and the policy changes that Tia does have outlined in kind of the second part of her presentation. So we've been here and we've had speakers come in and talk about trauma-informed responses, right? Trauma-informed care, the work of building attachments, the work of having other kinds of responses and working to de-escalate. So Stephanie Zimmerman came in. We also had Meredith Wiley, who talked a little bit about some of those issues. We also have been having a lot of discussions around ways to identify young people coming into the system, especially the kindergarten screenings, right? And having an opportunity to build supports in our school systems around students so that we can have a sense of what's going on ahead of time. And then also just our last session, right? We had the whole panel on restorative justice, and we had the DA here, and we had a lot of folks from the juvenile justice probation and our judges come in to talk a lot about what we're trying to do there and with our schools. So we have a lot of these solutions beginning to take shape here in Fresno County, and some of them have been going on for many years. So we are already beginning to address this, and part of what was great about having Tia come in is just sort of helping to connect the dots, right, between all of these different conversations we've been having, especially over the last year or so, to kind of help us see what happens when we don't continue to sort of invest more in what we know works, right? And kind of having to move away from and doing less of what we know doesn't work, right? So part of this is really just helping us connect the dots. So when we hear buzzwords like the school-to-prison pipeline, or we hear buzzwords about, sort of like what restorative justice looks like, or what trauma-informed responsive care is, or ACEs, right? It helps us kind of figure out what this looks like in a community like this, where we have a lot of these deep pockets of concentrated poverty, and we have a lot of young people and their families that are going through a lot. And especially when we know we have a lot of low-income families here that are struggling to kind of figure out a way to increase that. So I really want to thank Tia for coming in and helping us to kind of put all those pieces together for us. And I want to thank you all for kind of like hanging in this conversation that we've been having over the last few years, right? As we sort of are putting all these pieces together and really continuing to think about what this means as we think about how we care for our kids and our families here. So I do want to turn it over to you now and give you a chance to have some Q&A and ask Tia any questions, or also, if you've got something that you're sort of been reflecting on and maybe something that you're kind of looking from a different perspective now, and you want to share a little bit about how you're thinking a little bit differently than you might have been before, that's totally appropriate to share as well. So, yes, okay, great, hands coming up. And Tia's got your mic there.
Yeah.
And so please speak into the microphone here because it helps with the recording. Okay, where was I going?
Mia, who always has a comment. I want to thank you for pointing some things out. I am retiring from teaching teachers, and one of the real problems I have seen coming from the state of Illinois to California is that teacher education does not cover any of the things that they need.
Yes.
And I feel it is extremely important for all of us to open the doors at a young age to qualified teachers. We have superintendents who work very hard to hire good people, but the structure of not being involved in children's lives as they go through the education process really changes how they turn out as teachers. And I stand very firmly and happy to say that I have helped to see some young people into education who really belong there.
That's wonderful. Yeah, and so that okay, in the wealth of solutions, and I'm just kind of showing you that this is a quick view of the solution set in the school side, right? But a key one is, and we've gotten some of this into the new teacher credentialing standards, just that our teachers come out, they haven't even really been exposed to classroom management, let alone this deeper stuff. So you don't even know how to, and when you don't know how to manage a class, and you're trying to teach, and you have a pacing guide, and you know your school's going to be shut down if you don't get the test right. Like, so we need both the classroom management and then this deeper stuff. And if we don't start getting teachers out and also recognizing and rewarding that in teachers, you know, then we're not going to turn this around. So that's just a really important part and an important state lever because the state is setting those criteria.
I don't need the mic. Oh, sorry.
Beautiful voice.
Okay, so I'm noticing on the data you had 1970, 1972, the end of the civil rights movement, desegregation. What's the tie? What have you learned?
Okay, thank you. So the question is about like this 1970 as a point, as a kind of tipping point, and it is really important because it signaled the beginning of the backlash to the civil rights movement. Okay. Two things happened there. One is it's the beginning of deindustrialization and globalization. Okay. So good jobs for people with a high school degree or less, regardless of their color, were leaving. Okay, and they began to leave at a higher and higher rate. The other thing that happened is that after really 15 years of absolutely unprecedented gains at the Supreme Court and legislation, African Americans were gaining power. And Nixon came up with a brilliant strategy that we still see reflected today in Trump, okay? Which was, you knew that folks were afraid. They were scared that norms had changed quickly. You couldn't say, yeah, segregation, now segregation. Suddenly that meant you were a bad person, right? So he needed to find a coded way to talk about the threat of black people, right? Without saying black. And he happened upon it. And what it was the word crime. Okay, so talking about crime and getting tough on crime, talking about welfare cheats, all of that was coded language to talk about black people. And what he was able to do, the Republicans never had the kind of poor and working class whites in the South. They had traditionally voted Democrat, right? It completely realigned the world, and suddenly all of those folks voted Republican. That was the beginning of a stream. So it was the Southern strategy, is what it was called, right? But that political tactic intersected with this economic changes, right? To create a set of policies around policing, incarceration, and I'd argue even schooling, right? That created and built up the latest pipeline, the new Jim Crow, right? So that's the and every single 70 is an inflection point. It is where all of these trends begin. So I would say that's probably the connection.
Any other questions?
you have the wrong perspective. They can go to juvenile hall and then to prison, and we can spend $10,000 to $50,000 a year, and they're off the streets, they're out of the classroom, and we can bankrupt government.
Exactly.
Versus investing, for those of you who heard Meredith Wiley's talk, conception to age 2 is the silver bullet. I would venture that virtually every child that entered the system had a negative conception to age 2. Yeah. Those that have a positive conception to age 2 do well. And the schools need to educate their students on the science behind why conception to age 2 is so critical. Parents don't need a license to become a parent. They just need to engage in sex. It's the most significant thing they do. Yep. And if we really want to cut crime, we want our kids to read by 3rd grade, graduate high school, conception to age 2 is by far the most cost-effective way to do it. I'm preaching to the choir here. If you haven't heard me talk about it, 2 quick announcements, if I may. I've written a paper on conception to age 2. It explains the science. It's based on 2 books. Many of you already have it. I have some extra copies there, and I'm going to be presenting the paper this Sunday at the Unitarian Universalist Church Town Hall program. You're all invited. That's what this flyer is. If you've already heard this, but you have friends or colleagues, share it with them, because it is absolutely idiotic that we have something that maybe for $1,000 a student, they'll be productive in school. Yep. They'll have good jobs. And we can reduce crime. I don't want to be a victim of crime. And I really get pissed off that we spend $100 billion a year across our country dealing with crime. I'll get off the soapbox. If you have any comments, welcome to it.
No, that is spot on. If this government were a business, it would be in bankruptcy, right? If you had stocks, no stockholder would tolerate throwing away that much money when you would get such a better return if you did it earlier. And it's literally a matter of 15 years, right? Between paying, essentially, putting this money in early, right? Or paying incredible amounts on the back end for a system that only leads people to go out and do the same stuff again and enter back into that system. So, I mean, a profoundly broken, and in conservative communities, the cost arguments are incredibly, incredibly important. They're incredible. They're the bedrock about which you can begin to build kind of a common sense approach to this, right? So I urge you, there's a paper by Lawson and Rumberger that talks about the cost of suspending students, right? And basically how basically society faces all of these big costs because you're feeding incarceration and high school dropout and chronic unemployment.
Great. Well, thank you so much, everyone. I know another round of applause for Tia here. And also, you know, the cost argument and also just the reality of what this is costing us as a community. We discussed last time in our last action forum around the restorative justice, and Mary Louise Frampton brought her study about Fresno County and just demonstrated the cost difference between when we send a young person to CJC, right, and have that sort of restorative intervention rather than having them actually sent to detention and being detained. So we know all these things kind of are happening in our micro level, and being able to look at the big picture is really helpful. I want to thank everyone for coming today. I want to thank our speaker. I want to thank Courtney and Calviva for presenting earlier. We are out of time here and sort of coming to a close, but feel free to stick around and network with one another. Ask Tia some questions if you'd like. But I did want to remind us that our next time we meet, we won't be meeting until June 9th. But we will have our next action forum, and we're going to have Brenna Hughes here, who is the team lead for the Acute Care Speech Language Pathology Department at Community Regional Medical Center. And she's been doing a lot of work around concussions and sort of how that affects child's developing brains. So I know we hear a lot about that with sports-related injuries and also biking accidents and other injuries that happen also from violence and domestic violence. So how those are really helping to shape children's brains as well. And we know that that's kind of been an issue. So we have Brenna, who's an expert in that field, who's going to be coming and sharing that information. So if you know folks, and especially from maybe those of you who are in schools, your athletic departments, those of you who are in rehab departments and the medical centers, this might be one you want to invite some of those colleagues to take a look at too. Because we do know that young people, when they do have these things, they definitely do affect their developing brain, and we begin to see exactly some of those externalizing behaviors that we were talking about as well. And for those of you who've had friends or loved ones who've had traumatic brain injuries, you know that that behavior and being able to regulate your behavior does begin to change. And so that there's a lot of consequences for these things that we're just beginning to learn even more about. So it's a very exciting talk, and so we're excited to have Brenna here as well. So thank you everyone for coming out this morning. We want to make sure that we get your feedback. We spent a little extra time on networking today. We're going to do even more of that in the past because that was part of the feedback from you all. So please keep the feedback coming, and also let us know what we did well. Let us know key points that you enjoyed from our speaker today. Any other ideas for speakers or topics? These really help us inform it. So we're here to help make this a really valuable learning experience and reflecting experience for all of us. So thank you so much, and have a great day. And enjoy the rest of your Friday.